Hallo liebe Studenten und Studentinnen, im heutigen Online-Video geht es um das Plusquamperfekt und die Konjunktion nachdem. In this video we will look at the Plusquamperfekt and the conjunction nachdem. And as always, let's start with some examples. Nachdem Luca den ganzen Tag gearbeitet hatte, ging er ins Bett. You can see nachdem and gearbeitet hatte, the Plusquamperfekt in this sentence. Nachdem translates to after. Can you translate the whole sentence? It should be after Luca had worked all day, he went to bed. Let's look at another example. Nachdem Miley mit ihrer Freundin telefoniert hatte, sah sie fern. And again, I've highlighted the conjunction nachdem for you and the Plusquamperfekt. In English, the sentence would be, after Miley had talked to her friend on the phone, she watched TV. And the last example. Nachdem Timmy eingeschlafen war, fing es an zu regnen. Nachdem and the Plusquamperfekt eingeschlafen war. And the translation would be, after Timmy had fallen asleep, it began to rain. And these are the things we would like to focus on today. Uses of the Plusquamperfekt and nachdem, and the formation of the Plusquamperfekt. How do we form that tense? But first of all, what is the Plusquamperfekt and how is it used? The Plusquamperfekt is one of the three past tenses in German. The other two past tenses are the perfect and the Präteritum. So now you're learning the last past tense, das Plusquamperfekt. And this is how it is used. We use the Plusquamperfekt to describe past action and events that were completed before other past actions or events. So there are always two different actions or events in the sentence, and one of them was completed before the other. We will take another look at our example, the first one. Nachdem Luca den ganzen Tag gearbeitet hatte, ging er ins Bett. You can see I highlighted two different verb forms here. So we're looking at the past, what happened first and was completed before another event happened in the past. Den ganzen Tag arbeiten, that's what happened first, and that was completed by the time that Luca decided to go to bed, ins Bett gehen. So, the English translation, again, after Luca had worked all day, he went to bed. You can see, had worked, yeah, and in German that is gearbeitet hatte oder hatte gearbeitet. Now, this is the past perfect in English. We call it the past perfect. It's the same idea, or it's the same use in English for the past perfect as it is for the Plusquamperfekt in German. In English, you also have two events in the past. One happened or was completed before the other one. And the one that was completed earlier in the past, that one is in the past perfect. And then we usually use the simple past for the second event. In German, we use the Plusquamperfekt for the action or the event that was completed earlier. All right. Let's now take a look at the Plusquamperfekt and the conjunction nachdem. You might wonder, What do these two topics have to do with each other? Back to our earlier example. Nachdem Miley mit ihrer Freundin telefoniert hatte, sah sie fern. I've highlighted nachdem for you here. So you can see we have the Plusquamperfekt, telefoniert hatte, in the same clause as the conjunction nachdem. And in fact, the Plusquamperfekt appears in clauses that are introduced by the conjunction nachdem quite frequently. And that's why we're talking about the conjunction nachdem today as well. Okay, so the conjunction nachdem introduces this clause. What is at the end of this clause? The verb hatte. What does that tell you? Hatte is the inflected verb and it's at the end of the clause. That should hopefully tell you that we are dealing with a subordinate clause. So nachdem is a subordinating conjunction. And as I just mentioned, in the subordinate clause, you already know that, the inflected verb is at the very end. In this case, hatte. This subordinate clause is first in this example, and actually the nachdem subordinate clauses are first most of the time. Yeah, they usually appear before the main clause, which we can see here. Sah sie fern, that's the main clause. If we have a subordinate clause before the main clause, we always have to pay attention to the position of the inflected verb in the main clause. It's very important that the verb is first, right after the comma, followed by the subject. All right, so that's our order, subordinate clause before main clause. Of course, you can also turn it around. You can say, Miley sah fern, nachdem sie mit ihrer Freundin telefoniert hatte. That's absolutely possible. It's just more common to have the nachdem clause first. I just said that the event or the action that happened earlier in the past, a longer time ago, so to speak, that event is in the Plusquamperfekt or in the past perfect in English. And then I mentioned that in English, the event that happened later is in the simple past. Now in this example here, what verb form do we have? Sah sie fern. Can you recognize which past tense that is? This is the Präteritum tense. However, we have two options in German. We can either use the Präteritum tense for the verb in the main clause, or we can use the perfect tense. And I wrote the example down for you with the perfect. Nachdem Miley mit ihrer Freundin telefoniert hatte, hat sie ferngesehen. That is absolutely fine as well to use the perfect here. So I'm just going to repeat. The verb in the main clause, after we've used the Plusquamperfekt and the subordinate clause, the verb in the main clause can either be in the perfect or in the Präteritum tense. A very important thing that we haven't talked about is how we form the Plusquamperfekt. So let's take a look at that now. Do you know how you form the past perfect in English? Remember the example? Luca had worked all day. Had worked. What are we using here? We're using an auxiliary, have, but we're not using it in the present tense. We're using it in the simple past tense. And then we're using worked, which is the past participle. So it's formed almost like the perfect, the present perfect tense, but the auxiliary verb is actually not in present tense, it's in the simple past tense. And this is exactly the way how we form the Plusquamperfekt in German as well. We're using an auxiliary verb, that's the Hilfsverb that helps create this tense. And we have to choose, as we do in the perfect tense, we have to choose between the auxiliary haben and sein. You know, you have to look at the verb. Is there a change of state? Is there a change of location? or is it one of the exceptions? Yeah. So habe nur sein in the Präteritum tense. It needs to be inflected in the Präteritum tense. And then we just add the Partizip 2, in English, the past participle. Here are the examples from the sentences we looked at earlier. Hatte gearbeitet, so that's haben in the third person or first person in the Präteritum, and then the Partizip 2, gearbeitet. Hatte telefoniert, again haben, and then I also used an example with the auxiliary sein, war eingeschlafen. Okay, if you would like to do some further reading on this topic, which is as always highly recommended, you can find more information in your Kontakte textbook. And there is also an exercise that you should complete before the lecture. Vielen Dank für eure Aufmerksamkeit.